Hi all, I'm so honoured today to have a special guest back on with us for episode 200. Can you believe it? Dr. Peter Hines. Peter is such an amazing person who's done so much in this world to research and educate and help organisations truly implement cultures of sustainable excellence. Taking practices like lean and truly making them stick and sustain onwards to achieve ongoing results and truly a better future. I had Peter on for the first episode of this podcast to honour him, and it's such an honour to have Peter back on for episode 200, such a big milestone. He's unpacking research he did with OC Tenor and the leadership there of Gary Peterson and others in that organisation. Such a pertinent topic, you're going to learn so much. It is a community meeting episode, so you'll hear some of the community asking questions also, and we all gain so much value from this show. I look forward to you hearing it and helping celebrate our 200th episode. Let's get to the show.
Welcome to the Enterprise Excellence Podcast, where we share knowledge from global experts and practitioners in how to embed excellence for sustainable results. How to create a culture of continuous improvement and innovation using best practices in operational excellence, customer experience and sales, leadership, strategy, people development, and environmental and social good.
I'm your host, Brad Jevons, coming to you from Brisbane, Australia. Enhancing an organisation's ability to continuously improve and innovate at all levels creates amazing results. Up to 10 times productivity improvement, customer and employee experience increases, as well as safer operations and reduced environmental impact. Unfortunately, most programs deployed to enhance the company's ability to improve and adapt failed to deliver. A select few have overcome this trend and truly embedded excellence. This show explores these organisations and steps you can take to improve yours. This show is proudly brought to you by the Enterprise Excellence Community and Group, which is focused on helping organisations embed excellence for sustainable results and a better future. Through the group, you can attend workshops focused on the most important topics to embed excellence. You can also get hold of free resources from the download section of the website, or reach out to one of our members for some advice and help. Visit enterpriseexcellencegroup.com.au to learn more. Let's get into it, everyone. We're so lucky to have Dr. Peter Hines on the event with us. And Peter, you're, as I had on that slide there, amazing author, expert, really inspired me from early days, but also just an all-round good guy. And I'm really looking forward to learning from you, Peter. And then I think everyone will go through the presentation with Peter, and Peter will take us through this case study, which is just, I'm looking forward to hearing it, Peter, because, I've read so many of your books and studied so much of your work. And this is a chance to take that knowledge, but see how you applied it to really looking at this case study. I think it's going to be great for all of us. And then everyone will ask questions either as we go. Feel free to put your hand up, but also at the end, we'll just open up the conversation and just chat about what we've learned. So, Peter, thank you so much for joining us and taking us through this today, mate. Really appreciate it. So, Peter, what led you to go to the research? Before you go into it, Peter, what led you to go into the research on this topic with OC Tenor?
Really, some of you will be aware that I do a lot of work with the Shingo Institute, and Gary Peterson is probably the epitome of the Shingo leader. So, if you ask anyone in the Shingo community who is as close to a Shingo leader as possible, Gary Peterson sort of comes up as the go-to man. So we decided that we'd study Gary and his application of lean and the Shingo approach, and in particular look at his leadership style in OC Tenor. So this was done actually with a series of interviews and so forth at OC Tenor in Utah. And I'll be actually with Gary next Friday. So I'll be back at that site on Friday.
Oh, okay. So they're doing a tour as part of the Shingo conference to OC Tenor again this year.
They're doing a tour on Monday afternoon, which I'll be presenting, so I won't be on that. But the exciting news is that together with Gary and Cheryl Jekyll, who I think you know, Brad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheryl's brilliant.
We're going to write a book called The People Value Stream. So we're going to capture a lot of the people value stream approach that I've been working on with Cheryl for the last few years. And we're going to use OC Tanner to illustrate it. So Gary is going to give cases on each of the chapters on how they apply this at OC Tanner.
Oh, that's going to be awesome, Peter. I'll be looking forward to that one. Any timelines on the book, Peter, for us to keep our eyes and ears out for the release?
Well, I think we're going to have our first meeting on it next Friday. I guess the lead time is more to do with who publishes it than actually anything else. Because if you
Very
give
true.
it a regular publisher, it's at least 6 months to do. It'll probably take us 6 months to write. But if we publish it ourselves, or through Amazon or Google or something like that, then it'll be this year. If not, it'll be early next year.
Oh, nice. I'll keep the ear to the ground, Peter, and I'll release it. I'll notify too, and everyone will see the post when it comes out. It's going to be a good one because I got so much time and respect for Cheryl also. Like, she's amazing. So I think it's the three of you coming together is going to be a great book.
Good, yes. Right, should I get going?
Yes, please, Peter.
Yeah. Okay, so a little bit about this. We studied basically Gary Peterson. So this work was presented at the European Shingo Conference. This presentation, and also we're going to present this next week at the main Shingo conference in Utah. So I did this work together with Juliana Salvatino. So she is just finished her PhD at University of Aveiro in Portugal, together with Helen Zach, who is the research director of the Shingo Institute. So that was our three people working on this. So there are two papers on this. So at some point I'll let you have those when they're published, Brad.
That'll be great.
So really, in terms of the research that we did, we wanted to study a Shingo expert, someone that was really good, exemplar in Shingo, and what have they done in terms of leadership in their organization, and really part of the research was what can we learn from this that might be able to extend our learning in terms of our own organization, or obviously feedback to the Shingo Institute. And the interesting thing about Gary, has Gary presented with you, Brad?
Yeah, he has, Peter.
I
He
think
gave
so.
us
Yeah.
he gave us a presentation a while back. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a little bit of what does he do and how does he do it? So he's been at OC Tanner for 37 years. In fact, he's going to retire at the end of this year. So this is his last year. And he's responsible for the supply chain and manufacturing part of the business. So that's about 450 people in Utah, a small number of people in India, Australia, UK, Germany, I think, are the overseas sites. And they won the Shingo Prize in 1999. And the interesting thing is that they've gone from strength to strength since that time. And we did a interview process, and the interview process that we had was we interviewed 6 of the community that Gary works within. So this would be consultants who bring people to his site, or other well-known people similar to Gary in the US community. So we had face-to-face interviews with them. We also interviewed some of his senior executive peers in OC Tanner, and we interviewed all of his 14 reports, direct reports or slightly indirect, but the team that he works with. And then we surveyed a larger number of people on the shop floor, so operators, team leaders, group leaders. So we basically did a 360-degree viewpoint of Gary, and we asked them to give a few words describing Gary. And as you can see from this, a caring, humble leader was really the words that came out. You can see some of the other words. I don't think there's actually any words on there that are somewhat negative. There's actually all words that are positive about Gary.
I like the
And
goofy one. I like the goofy one. That's a good
yeah,
call.
yeah, he is a little goofy. We'll show a video which is actually showing it being a bit goofy as well. So, um, and if you're not familiar with OC Tanner based in Utah, Salt Lake City. Basically, that's an organization that makes long service awards and various other recognition awards for organizations, pin badges, statues, etc. They actually make the Shingo Prize, so they probably had more Shingo Prizes than everyone else put together, I suppose, in their life. And so that's basically OC Tanner. Um, Now, the interesting thing about Gary is that we think of him as a natural leader, but actually, he has become a natural leader. You can't change leadership, you can change other things. Well, actually, that's not true of Gary. So, this is a direct quote from Gary is, I think that in the first 5 or 6 years, our journey, I hurt people. So actually,
Mhm.
he's changed, and the formative event in that change was actually around about 95, and he was trying to put in one piece flow. So he'd watched the HP video on one piece flow that probably many of us have seen that comes from the sort of 1980s. And he was trying hard to put one piece flow into their manufacturing, and it really wasn't working that well. He got the production batch down from hundreds or thousands down to sort of 10 or 20, something like that. And then he was really trying hard to do this, and eventually one of the ladies from the soldering division in the organization came up to him and said, "Look, this isn't working. This is really, I don't know, this just isn't working." So he was like a typical leader, typical manager. He was quite defensive about, this woman from the shop floor was rubbishing his program. And so he basically said, "Well, it is working. You got to try harder." And he just went on and on defending the program. And eventually, this woman, she burst into tears. So then what could he do? So he went back to his workplace, and his program he didn't feel was really working very well, and he'd made one of the shop floor people burst into tears, and he was waiting for the CEO to knock on the door and say, this is the end. Here's your cards, off you go. But that's not what happened. So it took him a couple of days to build up a bit of courage, and he knew he really needed to apologize to this lady. And of course, she didn't really want to make herself available to him because, obvious reasons. So eventually, he had to go down to her work area, which was some of the toughest work people in the company. And of course, she wouldn't come away from the workplace, so he had to go down to the work team, and he had to make the apology, and he was really apologizing to the whole team. And he did this to them, and he said, I don't really know. I don't really know what I'm doing here. I know one piece flow is what we've got to do, and it's not working. I'm really out of my depth. I don't know what to do. So he went back to his room. He's feeling really quite crestfallen at this point. And about half an hour later, two of the other ladies from the soldering department came to his room, knocked on the door, and they basically gave some ideas of how you could make this type of improvement in their area. And this is the first time there'd been this sort of bottom-up approach. It'd been very much pushed, forced approach, and he knew what they said. They tried it, and it didn't work. But he said, "Okay, give it a go." And they were sort of surprised. They gave it a go. It didn't particularly work. But after that, they then tried something else and something else and something else. So they didn't ask for permission, they just did it. And that was the start of moving from this sort of top-down approach And what Gary realized was the difference was when he made himself vulnerable to people. He actually got this bottom up, and that was the start of this whole bottom up approach that we see at OC Tanner now. So this formative event, it changed him. It changed the direction for the organization. So
hi, I want to show you how awesome it is to work at the OC Tanner company. In our factory here, we've basically taken the standard management model and we've turned it upside down so that people are working every day together to make the business better. I want you to be brave. I want you to be brave and say, hey, you know what? I don't think that's the best way to do it. Be brave. Stand up for something. Our new one looks a little different for it. You put the belt here. Nice. Ooh, that's kind of fun.
We don't like it.
I'm glad you don't like it.
So when we're enameling, we don't forget to put them on.
Yeah, that's great. Very smart.
And the blades, we just put on the bolts.
Nice. I like it. Very nice. Back to your regular work. When you're doing your stuff, you're okay. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
That's great. Good for you guys. I like it. Look at you. You're already thinking of ways to make things better. Thank you so much.
I'm very proud of everything that you do, and I enjoy working with every single one of you. Thank you.
Right behind him. Chomp, chomp, chomp. No way this was more efficient. But then you realize that on those trim machines, that trim broke, 10 minutes ago. And there's still chomp, chomp, crank it easy. Set up all of our teams so that people can think systemically. Everybody's connected to our purpose, which is help people thrive and work. I don't believe there is anybody who I cross paths with on a day-to-day basis who, if I got to know them, would have something. Bottom of the Shingo model, the foundation for culture, the cultural principles of respect for people and humble leadership. If somebody comes up with an idea and everyone rolls their eyes like, oh my God, then that's a lack of respect. And that culture kills continuous improvement. I think for somebody to be naturally warm and human is for us the number one factor. What do you like about it? You like everything about it.
Because I kind of give you an example.
I love it. And the picture's really easy to see. That's awesome. What a simple fix. Simple fix. And there's so much power in that.
okay, so there's a little bit about Gary. That's a snippet video that's done about 2 years ago that was celebrating his 35th anniversary at OC Tanner. And what you can see is it's not a typical leader. He spends the vast majority of his time on the shop floor. As you can see, he's interacting with the people in a very positive way, very full of praise for the people. And you can see, you can't tell which is the senior managers, the middle managers, the shop floor. Everyone looks the same. And in fact, the manufacturing area, it's one manufacturing area. Next to it is a room that's an office, and then there's a manufacturing area. It's the same floor tiles. It just is one environment, and hence what you get is this sort of very, very humble, caring leader. So in terms of the research, I mentioned this already, that basically we were studying his approach with the 4 areas that I talked about. And we were looking at not just what he did. So we weren't looking at, the regular stuff, the Gemba walks and the one-to-ones and the stuff that we'd expect. We were looking at what he did and how he did it. So, it's often spoken about that 70% of communication is non-verbal. But when you look at research, actually what we all study is what people say. So we were looking at his emotions, his tone, his body language, as well as the type of language that he actually used. And we were seeing how did he adjust himself to the different individuals in the organization. And this is what we found. So some of you might have used the Soundwave tool from Kevin Ayre. Basically, this style of words that we use. So some style of words is asking, some style of words are suggesting, and some kind of words are telling. So in other words, what we're trying to understand here is to what degree are people being able to work on their approach themselves, or is he telling them the answer? And what you can see from this is his predominant style is very much asking. So inquiring for engagement, diagnosing for solutions, probing for insight. And what you can see also is if you look carefully, the direct reports, the gray curve here, the gray bar chart, is a little bit lower for the ask. So what we found is that he's more direct with his direct reports. So in other words, he changes his leadership style when he's with people on the shop floor or other senior managers, etc. And very much more asking, whereas with his direct reports, because they behave in the right sort of way, he can be a little bit more directive in his style. So that's a little bit about the style of leadership. And then if you look at the emotions that he shows, and you can see that in the video, that cheerful, enthusiastic, proud, and proud here means proud of the organization or the people that work there. At ease, excited, serene, relaxed. And we could see that in the video. You know, it was very much that approach. But the sort of negative emotions of nervous, guilt, fear, anger, etc., very, very infrequent. You can see sometimes that aggravated. So sometimes his direct reports see him when he's aggravated with something, but it's not. He doesn't show that in any other environment. And then we actually looked at his voice tones. So in other words, the tone of voice says a lot of messages to people. And what you can see is that, again, each of the communities that we looked at, that all the positive voice tones, competent, trustworthy, confident, attractive, warm, agreeable, are very, very frequently seen, and the dominant, aggressive, very, very infrequently seen. So the voice tone is there. And the body language, we studied that. You need to be a little bit careful in interpreting body language, because sometimes, you know, things like crossed legs. I mean, sometimes people cross their legs because they feel naturally comfortable like that, but often it's a sign of anxiety or something like that. So what you can see is making a regular eye contact. This is a 1 to 5 scale. You can see is very, very frequent, and conversely, avoiding eye contact, which is a very nervous sign or sign you actually see in a lot of autistic people very much like that as well. It's not absent, it is absent. And what you can see is smiling, leaning in, nodding, keeping relaxed, expansive arms. All the positive body language is there. Now, if you read the research on body language, is that people actually more interpret the body language than they interpret the words that people are saying. And if there's a conflict between the words that people are saying and the body language, then actually people listen to the body language more than they listen to the words. So what you can see is that the words are right, the leader standard work is right, the emotions are right, the voice tone is right, the body language is right. The interesting one is if you look at legs crossed at the knees, what we can see is this is usually seen as a rather a defensive or not agreeing with someone. But you can see in the indirect reports, so this is the shop floor, this is actually quite frequently seen. which is really, well, that's a little bit strange. But the reason for that is, here is Gary on the shop floor, and you can see that why they see him cross-legged, because he sits down. So he's a big, booming, sort of big voice, tall, big, imposing character. So actually, he tries to reduce the power that he has by coming at the same level or lower than other individuals in the room, so that he actually, you can see he's really listening, and that actually he's giving the power to the people making the presentation. So actually, his body language is extremely positive here, although this is where you need to be careful in how you interpret the body language. And interesting on this slide, you can't actually tell which is the senior management team and which are not. Actually, the two guys behind Gary are actually senior managers, and the rest are the team. But you wouldn't really know that. The clothing's the same, the positioning's the same. So in other words, the leadership is not just Gary, but he's taught his leaders, his team, how to do this as well. So in other words, the body language is very, very similar with that type of person as well.
But on that, not to cut your pain, but I remember you talking to me about Mars, about that too, Peter, that Mars, a lot of these common themes, you told me stories about Mars at one stage, the way they dress, the way they engage, also in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, it's that humble leadership. It's not creating a distance. What you get in many organizations, even today, is that some people wear suits and so forth for the senior management team, and then they go down to the shop floor to blend in, and they don't blend in at all. It's completely different. Whereas Gary goes down there, pair of chinos and a shirt or a t-shirt you saw in the video, he looks exactly like everyone else. Well, not quite like the lady with the ripped jeans, but near enough.
It's great. Thanks, Peter.
Okay, so we also asked how has Gary influenced me? So this point of, well, what are the results of this leadership? And what you can see is right across each of the groups that we talked about is that this positive, being positive, allowing people to make the changes themselves, obviously in terms of teaching lean, etc. But being a nicer person, helping people is very much creating this environment that, like he works, getting other people to do the same. So in terms of some of the stories, we asked people to tell a story about, that epitomize Gary. And of course, I can't share all those stories. 99 stories. We could say positive, and 4 were in some way negative. And all of those actually came from the direct reports. And actually 3 of them came from one direct report, where obviously there's some sort of personality clash going on. So what you can see is the number one was he knows everyone's name, everyone's person by name. And in fact, one of the stories by one of his peers, the financial director of the company. So the financial director had a new recruit in the finance office who'd only been there a few days. And he was going around with Gary, and they met this lady in the corridor, and Gary said hello to her by name. And the finance guy said, I don't know this lady's name, but how does Gary know this lady's name? So in other words, and you might think, well, he has a very good memory and, Or he's learned that actually knowing people's name and knowing not just what their name is, but the name of their husband or their wife or their kids and something about the family, what's going on. So everyone he meets, he asks them something personal. So actually he's putting them at ease before he has then a second conversation. So building other people up as leaders, understanding the needs of others, communicating body language, encouraging, you get the idea. So in other words, one of the quotes well, actually more than one person said, is Gary is someone you want to be with. You know, some people suck the energy out of a room and some people give energy to a room. You know what I mean by that. And Gary's one of those people that gives energy to an environment. So how has this affected people? So it's affected people being carer, being kinder, increasing their effort, recognizing other people, developing, empowering, etc., etc. So in other words, a lot of the traits that we're seeing in Gary is spreading into the organization. So the reason why they're successful is not just one person. It's that one person has made his direct reports do this. Well, made is the wrong word, but developed his direct reports to do this. They then developed the group leaders, the team leaders, etc., and it's gone right down the organization. So they hold a tour, 3 or 4 tours a month at OC Tanner, so really, really frequent. And 25% of your tour is you have to sit down and write out a card of observations you have and suggestions you have for them. So in other words, they use tours as a way of making improvements. So they're quite humble to say, you have ideas we haven't seen. So they think of tours as a plan, do, check, act. And actually they're looking for the ideas from the people coming around. So what is underneath all this? So, okay, we can act and behave and so forth in the right way. But behind that, they have about 12 systems that they apply. And these are probably the most important ones. So the recruiting is part of the coaching system, but basically the coaching system, the strategy deployment system, the leader standard work system, and the recognition. So I'll just talk a little bit about the recruiting, because I'll pick that one out particularly because, you know, to change people's behavior is quite hard. It's quite difficult. So they recruit people on behavior. So basically what they use is, some of us have done various lean games. You know, there's the plug game, the aircraft game, the stickle brick game, there's various Lego games and so forth. So they do that with a cohort of people that they're recruiting. And they then observe, 2 or 3 of the management team observe the people. And what they're looking for is they're looking for the team players. They're looking for the people that don't panic, that get to the root cause, that make suggestions, that work as a team. And that's the people they recruit. So they have a 3-phase approach. So one is a basic sift. Secondly, they do the simulation. And then they have a formal interview at the end. And they say, well, really, the formal interviews are not really necessary, because they know from observing people, the people they want to hire in terms of the approach. So if you like, one of the secrets that OC Tanner have is they get people with the right aptitude, the right behavior, that are trainable and so forth at the start place. And what you notice on the video was that it's a very, very diverse workforce. They have, I think, something like 60 or 70 nationalities working in their workplace. And if you've ever been to Utah, it's very much white, you know, Caucasian, very heavily Mormon population. But it's a Red Cross settlement area for refugees. So a lot of the people that they hire are refugees. So you know, you'll see a lot of, you know, Vietnamese and Cambodians and, you know, Congolese and all this sort of type of thing. So the recruitment is very important. Coaching is also really important. And what we notice on the coaching is that it's very, very frequent. So what you see is that if you're a shop floor person, a team member, you'll get coached for maybe 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, something like that, twice a month by your direct report. and then you'll get coached once a month by your group leader, so the boss of the boss. So, and then you might get some coaching from someone else in the organization. So virtually every week you're spending at least 30 minutes getting some coaching in the organization. And one of the secrets we find from what we see is that actually the mindset of people is right. So before you get into the behaviors that you actually see, you actually have to have the right mindset, because if you try and change behavior and you have the wrong mindset, the behavior will go back very quickly to how it was before. So the mindset they work on is a growth mindset, which is about positivity. It's I can't do that. And the essence of the word is I can't do that yet. In other words, I don't know how to do that yet, but once I've had some coaching or development, I will know how to do that. So in other words, it's not I can't do that because I'm, a refugee and I don't speak English very well. It's I don't do that yet, but I will be able to do that. And the other part of mindset that they train all their employees on the right-hand side, you can see is the Arbinger training. And this is something that's called the outward mindset. So the outward mindset is basically what could I do that would help other people? So in other words, they have a whole system that actually every employee once a month has to interview a number of people, customers, team members, their boss, these sort of people. And from that, they understand, what have I done or what am I doing that would make your life easier? So in other words, everyone is trying to make everyone else's life easier. They then work on that, they implement that, and then their reward and recognition system, their bonus, is partly based on, am I achieving results, a 2x2 matrix, or, X and Y. So am I producing results, and am I helping other people? And then this is the feedback from the other people. So basically, this is a 360-degree feedback. So to get the maximum bonus, I'm producing results myself, but I'm actually making it easy for other people to produce results as well. Then you get the maximum bonus. So all these systems link together in terms of that. So the mindset triggers the right behaviors, which we can sort of see in the video. And then we think it also important is these micro behaviors. So the micro behaviors of having the right voice tone, having the right body language, kneeling or nodding, etc. So it's not I do a Gemba walk behavior. It's how I do the Gemba walk that makes the difference. So that's actually what we're seeing in this case. I didn't go through all the coaching, but that's probably the more important thing. The leader standard work, this very much cascading down. So everyone knows exactly what is expected of them. They know what the challenges are in their area, so they can actually work on the right things. And I'm going to just pick out, recognition. You could see that in everything he did was about recognizing people, creating that positive growth mentality. So leader standard work, I'm just going to pick that one out. You won't be able to read this slide. Well, maybe you can, but this is an excuse me. This is an excerpt from Gary's monthly leader standard work. So this is last September, the last version that I have, and actually there's other bits to it as well, which I've cut off here. And what you can see is this is an A3 document that it's an open domain document. He just leaves it on his desk so anyone can come and have a look at it. And all his direct reports have something similar to this as well. And the top part is the usual stuff that you'd expect in a leader standard work. Do I do a huddle? Have I done a Gemba walk and that sort of thing? There's more of that at the bottom as well. But a few things I'll pick out. So L4s. So L4s are the reviews. So this is doing it with his direct reports. So this is the reviews of what have they done to help other people and the feedback. So they have conversations of what have all of his people, and then they have conversation with their people, etc. What have you done to help other people? So they live and breathe the outward line mindset. It's not just we do a training course, we're actually bonused on it. We're reviewed by our boss on it. So actually all the systems are driving you in the right way. The other thing I'm going to pick out is this section. How did I do my best to? So in other words, this is not just the what did I do, the usual sort of stuff, but this is how did I do it? So did I do my best to understand the needs of others and bless their lives? Create a safe place when someone challenged me. So, we talk about psychological safety, but actually it's in his leader standard work. So, did I react to the highest energy when others are at low levels? So in other words, is he creating this energy for the room? Did I enter a conversation with the mindset, we're in this together? Did I pause when I feel likely to judge people? So a lot of the behaviors that he knows that he might do, he actually says, did I do my best not to have those behaviors or to have positive behaviors? So when we think about the behaviors that he's showing or the micro behaviors, it's not just by accident. It's not just by, he is like that. He actually has worked on this. And the one that really, there's some things down here that are about mindfulness. Did I cut my caffeine? Did I shave 3 times? Did I do some exercise? But this one really blows me away. The SATL, which stands for Show Affection to Lisa. And Lisa's his wife. So this is on his leader standard work, that he needs to get his work-life balance right. He needs to actually not just put all his effort into the workplace. So a quite remarkable leader standard work in terms of how he does that. I'm going to do a number of insights into what we've seen here, just as a final section. And these were primarily feedback for the Shingo Institute, but I think they're good insights for all of us. So the first one is that we can see that he's very much respecting every individual. He's very much leading with humility. But actually, we think that probably the respect for every individual is like a supra principle. And this was Rick Edgman was the first to say this back about 7 years ago in a book that he produced, that actually everything is based on respect for every individual. So if you don't have respect to every individual, it really doesn't work. So everything is based on that. The second one is that the continuous improvement, we usually have the house of lean, the TPS or our equivalent of TPS. And we all have a version of that in the organizations, those people doing lean. But they pay attention to what we call the people value stream. So in other words, not just the product value stream, which is improving, the value stream map and how we improve the journey of the product and the information, but the people value stream. So very much you can see the essence of what they're doing is about the developing the people. It's working on. I don't quite like the phrase. I've always been uncomfortable with the 8th waste of wasted human potential, because I've never quite seen that as a waste. I've seen that as a Muri thing. So we're not creating the right environment. We're overburdening people. So in other words, the Muda and Mura is very much the traditional TPS approach, but actually the working on not overburdening people, getting the best out of people, is this people value stream. So this development of people, this L4s that we talked about, the individuals are actually developing their own plan, much more that in most organizations, annual reviews once a year, it's not treated as particularly seriously. they're having a coaching every week nearly. So in other words, it's an ongoing, it's very short regime. It's very much sort of in your face and so forth. So this people value stream. So having the right mindset, we've talked about that before. Before you work on behaviors, you get the right mindset. So the mindsets enable the behaviors. Sorry about the English here. This slide was obviously Helen did this one, so we have the American spelling. So in Australia, you still use proper spelling, or you use American?
Still proper, Peter. Still proper.
Proper.
We got electricity too, Pete.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. So the fourth insight was, we rely a lot on, intellectual intelligence. Who's the best at problem solving and so forth. What we can see from Gary is the focus is as much on, or more so, on emotional intelligence rather than intellectual intelligence. So creating a positive environment, the positive psychology, the neuroscience, working on various things that are actually in this space are actually really important for him. So our insight for the Shingo Institute is that the principle of scientific thinking should be extended, that we should be looking at behavioral science as well as the science of cognate thinking, of PDCA and so forth. We should actually be looking at neuroscience and some of these other areas as well. So the fifth area, I'm having to just move you around because where you are on the slide gets in the way, the pictures of people. So recognition is the heart of what we see at Ocitana, and this brought us to the realization, or reinforced, I suppose, our thought that many aspects of lean are actually psychologically quite damaging. They're actually quite negative psychology. Everything's difficult, everything's a problem, everything's a waste. So in other words, we're very downbeat. It's very glass half full, so half empty rather than half full. What you can see here is everything is good, everything is an opportunity, everything can become better. So very much working on the positive psychology. And actually what we find with organizations is those that create this positive mentality achieve a lot more and sustain the change much better. So if you look at some of the psychology behind this, the cognitive psychology, or very much a lot of education of when the work was done, actually looking at when do people grow the fastest, when do people learn the fastest. A lot of this was done on child education. The ratio was 4-to-1 or 3.57-to-1 of positive reinforcement to correction. So in other words, every time you say something, you could do it this way, do it this way. In other words, you should do 4 times, you're doing a good job, that's good. And what you could see in the video was he was recognizing, he was creating that positive environment. So very much that fifth insight. The sixth insight is very much around this micro behaviors. So this was not just the, I do the Gemba walk, I do the one-to-ones. It was, how do I do them? I do them sitting down, I nod, I use a strong positive emotions. So in other words, what we call the micro behaviors. So constancy of purpose principle to be extended to include constancy of behavior and micro behavior is our insight into that. So the seventh insight is around coaching. Sorry, so I can see, Jim, you're getting bored here. So there's only 8, so you don't need to worry. So the seventh insight is this little matrix here. So the left-hand side is the kata coaching, and the right-hand side is the traditional sort of HR coaching the individual. So what we can see is lean teaches us that we should focus on the left-hand side. So in other words, we have 2 types of improvement here. So one is the improvement kata. So this is the team themselves. They do the little plan in the work area, and they do this at OC Tanner. You know, what is our challenge? What's our biggest problem? You know, et cetera, et cetera. We go through that, and then the leader comes down and does the coaching kata. So the coaching kata is done by the team leaders for the team, and then the group leaders, and then the senior managers come around. And once a week on their coaching is they randomly pick a card, and the card talks about a system, and they pick another card that says the area, and then they go to the area, and then they do a coaching kata in the area on that system. So in other words, basically the left-hand side is about developing the organization, leader support, but it's very much about self-led. And what we see at OC Tanner is a lot of this is about self-led or self-reliant. So this is the essence of the people value stream, is it's not led by the leader, it's led by the individuals themselves. The leader is there to support the individuals making the improvement. So what we also see at OC Tanner, which is very unusual for a lean organization, is that you also have the right-hand side. So we've used the same kata language. So in other words, the people have understood what is meaningful for them. So not just the strategy coming down, the North Star, the challenge, etc., which would be the left-hand side, but actually what is meaningful, what am I trying to do, what am I trying to develop? So in other words, they're developing themselves very much along those lines. And instead of this as a once a year, the once a week nearly coaching is as much about developing the individual, what the individual wants. So if you understand the individual, you know their name, you know their family, you know what they're trying to achieve, then you can actually coach them themselves. So the individual coaching kata is coaching the individuals in what the individuals want to do in their career. So what we see, they're actually doing both sides of this coaching. And really, I'm not sure I've seen any organization that does both of these. Now, what we found, our thought process, as a lot of organizations do the right-hand side, the traditional HR coaching. And I don't know if it's the same in Australia. My recollection of working in Australia, it is the same in Australia as the UK, is a lot of, I don't know, excuse if there's any public sector people there, but they do a lot of coaching and then people on training courses, and then they come back and then they do virtually nothing with it. And, you know, it's a complete waste of time because they actually haven't got the systems in place. They haven't got the leader standard work in place. They haven't got the regular contact in place. It's a once a year or it's once a month in a classroom. It's not on the Gemba. So in other words, the right-hand side works because of things like the L4s, the coaching system, the strategy deployment system. So in other words, the right-hand side works. So people are very focused on what is meaningful for them, very high motivation because of all the systems that are actually in place. So that's why they get a lot out to the right-hand side. Most organizations who don't, frankly, I don't think get much out to the right-hand side, as well as, in fact, they get more out of the right-hand side than they get out of the left-hand side is my thought process. So that's the seventh insight. The last insight, I mentioned this before, is that this is not just Gary, this is a distributed leadership. So if we were to give a language to that, it's servant leadership. You can see with Gary, and distributed leadership. It's so distributed leadership means it's not just Gary doing it, it's his team doing it, their team and their team and their team. So in other words, the leadership is not just one individual, it's all the people leading people. But actually, a lot of this is self-leadership as well. So actually, this distributed leadership is everyone is a leader in this organization. It's not just a senior management thing. And in fact, Cheryl is just writing a paper talking about leadership not being a role-based thing, but actually being something that is for everyone in the organization. So she's working on that at the moment.
Well, that'll be a good one.
So these are some figures. They have a research institute coming out of OC Tanner that they say if you connect with people with purpose, their accomplishments and one another, that you get a much higher net promoter score, you get a high rating of employee experience, you get high engagement, you get a strong positive perception of leaders, and you reduce the burnout, the mental energy, stress, etc. And all that we can see in this organization. If you go there, you're just blown away. You know, Gary, when you go on a tour, he says, go and talk to whoever you want. I don't care who you talk to anyone. And you get the same positive feedback from, you know, you'll see this in spades in the organization. And, you know, the bottom line of this is that it's not just good for the individuals, it's good for the organization. So they're the only company in the US. So whether this changes with the tariffs on China is another question. But everyone else ships all their stuff in from China or whatever. They're the only company still making this stuff in America. And since winning the Shingo Prize 25 years ago, they've improved productivity 800%. 800%.
Yeah,
so in other words, this is not just good for the individuals, it's good for the organization as well. So hence, I think a lot of the lessons we can see out of this piece of research. So if you heard Gary talk, he'll talk about a lot of the systems and what they do. This is a lot of the stuff that's behind. And actually, when we gave some of these insights back to Gary and the team at OC Tanner, some of them they didn't realize that, you know, they didn't know what they were doing, but now they know what they're doing. They could do even more of it, sort of thing. So I think that's the end. So I'm going to stop sharing. And
Peter, that's awesome, Peter. And definitely what you said there, Peter, this presentation, like we had Gary on and it gave us some insights. This has gone deeper, you know, so especially getting into the behavior and the mindset and the micro behaviors and also some of the system insights that you've given, which is great. So team, here's the chance. And what questions have you got of Peter? And Jim, see you've come off mute.
It's always me. You always pick on me, you guys. So I'm lucky to have personal knowledge of OC Tanner. I was lucky enough to go there in 2014.
Okay.
And
great.
everything you said is actually true. I mean, I don't want to big up Professor Hines, but it's actually true. But one thing really stuck with me. We spent a whole day with the whole of the leadership team. I don't remember an urgent phone call, people having to take phone calls. So absolutely present. There was no panic. Right. There was no emergencies because basically all of their teams were self-directed, which meant the leadership team could really step back and look over the horizon in terms of how they can improve, how they can make things better, how they can grow different markets and all those kind of things, because the business was being looked after by all the people there. And it was truly astonishing. But it was eerie when the phone wasn't ringing. There was no panic at all. It was just one of my take-homes I'll never forget.
It is. I mean, the key to that is self-directed. You know, it's not self-directed teams. It's self-directed individuals as well. You know that one of the things Brad was kind enough to give us to contribute to a session we did recently in Belgium. And I know Brad, you were there, but on the flip chart, I drew up concentric circles, and lean was very much an organizational level thing. How do we improve the organization? How do we achieve all that? And the company was doing a sort of agile lean approach. They called it agile, but it was a sort of combination of the two, which is focusing on the team, which has sort of various advantages. But what we're seeing is at OC Tanner and other organizations, the focus is on the individual. So the primary focus is on the individual which is influencing the team, which is influencing the organization. So it's this sort of inside out or bottom up or whatever that actually has, maybe there's some learnings of bringing, you know, if we could do agile at the team level and this people value stream at the individual level and lean at the organization, maybe we bring all this stuff together.
Yeah, I think it's about people being valued, really felt valued.
Yeah,
come to me ideas. They might be weird and wacky. They might be goofy. They might be astounding, but their ideas were listened to, whether you was cleaning the floors or making rings or working the furnaces or anybody. It really didn't matter. Everybody felt as if they were pulling in the same direction, and it really wasn't fake as well, because you could smell if it was. So if anybody ever gets a chance, it's a life changer.
Peter, you know, you get companies where they have the really complex operating system or what is it, the MIS or the operating system.
Yeah.
Versus the companies like Danaher, where they've defined their behaviors and they more really look for those behaviors or principles. And it's quite a simple maturity index. And they're more using it as a coaching approach. How does OC10 go about it? Have they got the big operating model with the big combined quality safety type tracking system, or have they got more of a simple principle base where it's all based on the principles or ideal behaviors?
In terms of measures, they have a wall, which is for Gary's area. So that's the 450 people. So the strategy wall, and they have some simple metrics. So they have about 6 or 8 metrics, something like that. And they have a lead or lag measure. So, you know, if it's a reduced defects, what is the lead measure for that? And then that cascades down. So everyone works on the lead measure. So as Gary would say, I'll never criticize anyone for not achieving results, the lag measure, because something else could have happened. But they need to work on the lead measure. So in other words, if they haven't worked on the lead measure and it just happens to be the wrong lead measure, okay, it was the wrong lead measure. So let's pick another lead measure and let's work on that one. So, yeah.
And Peter, you know, with the excellence journey, have they had a way to measure their excellence journey? How do they measure their progress? Or is it really they don't do that? They just lead their systems every day?
I mean, they're trying to, you know, the measurement of their system is, are they achieving the metrics, the top level sort of stuff?
Yeah.
The measurement of the system, well, you know, Jim, you spoke to this as well, is you just talk to the people, you look at the motivation of the people. You know, the measurement of the systems is everyone highly motivated? Are we doing the right thing? They don't have measures of how many Kaizen events. Yeah, well, why would we measure that? I mean, it's just numbers. It's just this meaning.
And they don't have like a maturity index, Peter. Like, you know, like with Why Bother, you wrote about the maturity index. They don't have that. It's really just building leadership every day, leading the journey forward.
I mean, their view is why measurement is a waste. So why do we measure something that we know that's working? I mean, their measurement is people want to come and visit them. Their measurement is people want to come and learn from them. That they've just been given the Toyota now take people to OC10 to show how the Toyota approach works. So in other words, they've become an open visit site for Toyota.
Mm. It's the second great company I've heard in that regard, Peter, because when I had Mark Deluzio of Danaher on the podcast and I spoke to him about how did you measure and track your journey, Mark, he said, we didn't, Brad. We just built and grew leaders at all levels of the company based on our culture and our principles. And it sounds like we've got another example with OC10 where there's not a maturity index. There's not any of this type of stuff. It's just living it and leading it every day.
I mean, they could challenge for another Shingo Prize, but I think what you could see on the video is that they would walk it. There's no point challenging for something that they know they'd win. So why would you do that?
Yeah.
They would the next phase. So yeah.
So it's really all through leadership, really leaning in on culture and mindset and behaviors, and also then understanding the critical systems and improving the systems every day. And they know how that's going based on people engagement and strategic measures and gains that are happening. And that's how they take it forward.
Exactly. I mean, it's actually quite simple. And as you know, Jim was saying, it's there isn't a sense of rush or hurry or panic or it's. I mean, you saw the circle of people. There was like 12 people standing around having a meeting. That's Gary's team, and you know they're joking and laughing, and it's like it's almost like it's not a work environment. It's just I've never seen a management team like that. It's just so relaxed.
And
Yeah.
Pete, and yet those numbers in terms of productivity and customer satisfaction and lack of defects, they're all real, and profitability, they're all real as well. I mean, Gary doesn't talk about those bottom lines because he's so focused on the lead indicators. The lagging ones just kind of take care of themselves.
That's right. You don't need to worry about that. So
Yeah. It's
So
awesome.
why does everybody else in the Western world only look at that and then find the lead indicators difficult to handle?
I don't know. I mean, there's a video of him explaining it. You know, the strategy wall that's been around for 10 years or something. And I don't know why we don't all just focus on the lead measures. It seems obvious to me. You know, lead measures and behaviors seems obvious, but
well, you saw that in Gary's leader standard work there that you had on the screen, Peter, where it actually had real behaviors that he was leaning into, or even some of them you could have nearly said was mindset, and there was some personal ones on there too. Like actually, I think maybe I'm guessing linking to his wife or things like that too.
Yeah. So I mean, his wife and daughter feature on that and various on his mindfulness and well-being and that sort of stuff is there as well.
Can I just make a point to that? When you look at that and you spend some time you feel vulnerability in leadership situations. Now the Western it would see vulnerability as weakness and incompetence and something that needs to be drilled out at every opportunity, because the facade that a leader puts on is how much do I make, or did I hit my KPIs and things like that. So rewiring people to suggest what a problem is, there's an opportunity, and vulnerabilities can be seen as a strength, and going down to levels below his senior vice president or whatever it is onto the shop floor as a demeaning thing. It basically turns that on its head. And the answer to the question, why don't we all do that, is the $1 million question that you can see I haven't answered yet, and I don't know whether anybody on the call has either. That's what the professors are for, Pete. That's what you're there for, mate.
I think the other thing that was interesting for me, Peter, was I really loved the discovery on really honing on body language, tone of voice. That is how people interpret, and the fact that they're aware enough in their leadership to really work on that is powerful.
And we all deep down know that, but we don't act on it, do we? I mean, most of us know 70% of communication is non-verbal, but I mean, we only focus on verbal, don't we? When we it's strange. I mean, that's why we wanted to do that research. We wanted to look at the non-verbal as well as the type of language that was used. And that, it's very binary, the result, isn't it? All the good stuff he does, all the bad stuff he doesn't do. So,
and too, I really came through that he's evolved himself. He mentioned that when he caught up with us, he was quite open about some bad outcomes early on. Not the depth of story you had, Peter, which was great, but then he mentioned the constant work he's done on himself, and it's great to see. Great to see.
I mean, it's
Well,
very
Peter,
much. I'll just do one thing. It's very much a learning organization. So, epitome of that is that they have a library there, which is just in the office open office where Gary and his team are. And, there's a whole loads of books in there. And their attitude to that is, come in, take a book, read it. And if you like it, if you get value out of it, keep it. And we'll get another one. Because, the book costs, I don't know, $50 or something like that. So, which is nothing compared to it's influenced someone to change.
yeah, that's a great approach. Well, Peter, that was awesome. I really appreciate it, mate. I better let you get into the day. We'll get into we'll all head for dinner over here out in the Antipodes. But Peter, that's awesome, mate. That is top-notch work. Thank you so much.
Right. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Pete.
Have a good day. Well, good
Thanks,
evening.
Peter.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Bye.
See ya. Bye.
What a great episode, and a great episode to have as a number 200 in our series. It's been a long journey. We started with Peter. We're now at 200 with Peter. OC Tenor is such a great story of a company achieving enterprise excellence. It's absolute respect for people. They do so well at creating mini business units and connecting strategically, and then through great leadership. There were two key takeaways for me. The first was the power of humble inquiry as part of leadership. That really curious language, not coming with any preconceptions, being very humble in your language and inquiring open questions. You can really see that Gary Peterson through this study used that language a lot. The other key aspect for me was leading with respect and trying to develop the greatest capability in your people, both through engagement, but also then capability, culture, and morale. Such great stories, so much to learn from OC Tenor. If you want to, you can go to the enterpriseexcellencegroup.com.au to downloads, or under resources is what it's called, and you can actually get hold of the report Peter's kindly given us on this study of OC Tenor that you can then see and study further. Thanks again, Peter and Gary, and all you've done to help us learn and develop in the past, and will do into the future to help us create a better future. Bye for now.